There are a number of different horror movies that I am just never going to rewatch for a multitude of different reasons. It could be as simple as I just didn't like the movie to begin with, or there's something in it that I wasn't aware was going to be in it and it's put me off rewatching it again, or something might have been going on in my personal life at the time, so that movie has now been tainted because it's linked to a bad memory. Like, there are so many different reasons, and while I don't think that anybody should have to justify why they will or will not watch a movie, whether that's to begin with or if it's a rewatch, of course, I am going to be explaining why I'm not going to be rewatching any of these 8 movies. Just because I don't plan on rewatching these 8 movies does not in any way mean that I think other people shouldn't be allowed to enjoy these movies, because if you love any of these movies, love that for you. You go and enjoy them. They just aren't for me, and at the end of the day, these are just my opinions and we are allowed to disagree. You know, personal taste is personal taste for a reason. Now, this is actually the 3rd time that I have now done this list here on my channel, so if you are interested in what movies appeared in round 1 and round 2, I will leave them linked in my description bar and at the end of the video in case you want to know what else I decided that I'm not going to be rewatching. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, and if that sounds like something you might be interested in, maybe stick around and join the Horde by hitting that subscribe button, and if you're feeling extra generous, maybe even like or even comment the movies that you are never going to rewatch down in the comments section down below. So without further ado, here is round 3 of 8 horror movies that I am never going to rewatch. Brooklyn 45 from 2023 is a supernatural horror mystery. Set on a freezing evening in December of 1945, 5 military veterans gather together in an ornate parlour in a Brooklyn brownstone. Best friends since childhood, they have reunited to support their troubled host, but when his invitation for cocktails turns into an impromptu seance, the metaphoric ghosts of their pasts become all too literal. This one actually has a special reason for being on this list, and I don't think that Brooklyn 45 is actually a bad movie, and in fact, I quite liked this movie when I watched it last year. But for me, this one has to be a one and done kind of movie, because at the end of the day, Brooklyn 45 is a murder mystery, and you follow along with the characters in this. You find out their motives, you find out their dirty secrets, you follow along with the puzzles and find the clues. But once you've found out the whodunit part, it's never gonna have the same impact again if you decide to rewatch this movie, because the fun in a murder mystery is following along and figuring out the whodunit. But if you know whodunit from the start, it's not gonna have that same impact. You will probably never hear me make this statement again in a list about movies that I am never rewatching, but if you haven't seen Brooklyn 45, go and actually give this one a watch. It's over on Shudder, and it is actually a really good single watch movie, because who doesn't like a murder mystery? It feels very like the original Disney's Haunted Mansion with a sprinkle of like an Agatha Christie kind of mystery, and the board game Clue/Cluedo. Judge from 2013 is a Japanese mystery death game horror based on the manga series of the same name. 7 people who have committed the 7 deadly sins, lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride, are locked up in a sealed space by someone for an unknown reason. This is a perfect example of how not to do an adaptation, because I am lucky enough to actually have read the 6 volumes of Judge. It's actually a really solid manga. If you haven't read it and you can find it somewhere, I would recommend giving this one a read. But besides the opening sequence and the first like maybe 10-15 minutes, which is taken directly from volume 1, the rest of it has been completely changed besides the twist at the end. Like, even the main character has been changed. In the manga, Hero is the rabbit mask, and in this version, he's the wolf. And it makes really no sense why they decided to change what mascot head he got given.
And he's frightened me.
Because of its incredibly short runtime, we're talking an hour and 14 minutes from start to finish. Nothing feels padded out. There is no... You don't know why you should care about any of these characters, and it feels incredibly rushed. Like, 4 of these characters are killed off so quickly, and you only find out who they are really after their mascot heads come off. And then it's kind of like a throwaway detail. It's like, unless you've read the manga and know who these people are, because you get full descriptions, you're not going to care about them. Like, we're talking 6 volumes of manga condensed into an hour and 14 minutes. But what confuses me most is the opening 20 minutes is directly from volume 1, and the end 10 minutes is the twist from volume 6, but the middle just feels like they went, just make it up as we go along. If they've not read the manga, they'll never know. So for this one, just read the books. Breathing Room from 2008 is a death game horror. Thrown naked into a desolate room with 13 strangers, Tanya discovers that she is the final contestant in a deadly game. Restrained by lethal electronic collars, the players must utilise hints and tools from a box marked Pieces to find both an exit and the reason for their abduction. One by one, the players are eliminated as the curfew begins and the lights go out. With each dead body comes another clue about who among them is really the killer. Visually, this movie is terrible, and this is me being polite, because the entire thing has been shot in what I can only describe as a warehouse that has been entirely painted white. But they have also done no soundproofing to this warehouse, so the dialogue and the sound is just reverberating off of concrete walls. It is... it's not good. And then to top it off, when curfew starts, it is just everybody bathed in red light. So you either look like you are in a photography developing room, or, for my wrestling fans out there, do you remember the match between Daniel Bryan and The Fiend at Survivor Series where it was just a bright red ring? That.
What is that?
Even the deaths in this movie are horrible. Like, horrible, horrible. We're talking, you don't even see them actually happen on camera. Kind of horrible. Like, the red light will come on that says, "Oh, it's bedtime now," and then somebody will scream and everybody will pretend that they can't see in the red light, and when the lights come back on, there'll just be a dead body. No. But then you top it off by saying that nobody in this game is actually likeable. They're actually terrible, some of these people. We're talking like crimes against minors kind of terrible people. Like, why should I care if you live in a death game if you've got a criminal record that says you're not allowed within 50 miles of a school or a playground? No, I shouldn't, and I'm not going to. And the characters in this spend so much time making small talk, but I can't tell you a single damn thing about any of them, and then the ending happens and I was like, why am I not surprised that this ending is the ending? Because everything else about this movie has been horrible, so we might as well just go for a full house. The DVD for this one had actually sat on my shelves for, I kid you not, about 10 years by the time that I actually got round to watching this one. And if I had known that it was going to be this terrible, I would have binned the disc way sooner than I did. And it's safe to say that once I finished watching Breathing Room, the DVD went straight in the bin. The Bad Batch from 2016 is not a cannibal movie. Arlen is sent to a fenced-off wasteland where undesirables are exiled to. While trying to navigate the unforgiving landscape, Arlen is captured by a savage band of cannibals led by the mysterious Miami Man. With her life on the line, she makes her way to the Dream. As she adjusts to life in the Bad Batch, Arlen discovers being good or bad mostly depends on who is standing next to you. If you want to know how much I hated this movie, there is a full rant review here on my channel for this one that I will leave linked somewhere right now. I was sold on the description of this movie because they included one of my buzzwords, which was cannibals. And do you want to know when the cannibals are actually in this movie? About in the first 10 minutes. They're included for maybe 2 of those. And then they disappear faster than my bank account during Halloween season. Like, this movie is a liar. It's not a horror movie, and I will die on this hill.
Raise the drawbridge.
They used the buzzword of cannibals to get horror fans to watch this movie, and you will not convince me any differently because there is no substance in this movie. When you decide that your movie has 0 substance and still decide to make it just under 2 hours long, this is the director self-indulging themselves, because guess what? She also wrote the script for this one, and if I condensed all of the dialogue from this movie down, maybe 3 pages of dialogue. That I'm convinced of this. The rest is just like crap ASMR in a desert. The budget for this one was also $6 million, and I have no idea where they spent this budget, because they didn't build any scenery, because they just used pre-existing ghost towns in a desert. So I am hoping that that budget went to pay its stars some massive paychecks, because Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey are in this movie, and this was Suki Waterhouse's first feature film. Like, no, everybody in this movie deserved better than to be in this movie. There's a reason that none of them mentioned that they were in this movie. Husk from 2011 is a supernatural horror. A group of teenage friends are taking a drive when they are hit by a murder of crows, causing their truck to spin off the road into a cornfield. After stumbling into an eerie-looking scarecrow watching over the rows, they soon discover that they are stuck in the middle of nowhere, and that the abandoned farmhouse is the centre of a supernatural cult's ritual. I wonder how many of you saw my thumbnail and thought, oh, this is Hord saying that she's never watching anything from the Jeepers Creepers franchise, so you can consider this a bonus entry, because here on my channel, we do not support anybody who has had actual convictions of SA against anyone. And the director / creator of Jeepers Creepers, if you didn't know, went to prison for SA on a child. Back to Husk. I will admit that when I first heard the concept of supernatural scarecrows, I was intrigued by this one. But have you ever watched a movie and within the first 10 minutes thought to yourself, oh, I can't wait to watch every single one of these people get killed off because they're so unlikable and I couldn't care less about them? That is how I felt with Husk. Well, when this movie starts, it just starts sprinting, and it doesn't actually set up who any of these characters are. It's a short movie as it is, but I think if it decided to expand its opening by like maybe 5-10 minutes and actually make me care and invested in these characters, it could have gone a long way. I don't mind when a movie wants to sprint off at the very beginning, as long as it gives me the setup for who the characters are and a bit of the backstory, which Husk didn't, and I often felt like there was something missing that I didn't understand in this. And the supernatural scarecrows that was the selling point for this movie hardly appear in this movie. I swear it is one of those incidences where they put every single clip of the scarecrows in the trailer and there isn't anything extra in the movie. So I was expecting a movie about supernatural scarecrows and a cult, and it wasn't. But it was, but it, you know, like, I could have just watched the trailer and it would have been the exact same as me watching the movie. So 2.5 minutes, hour and a half.
Don't waste my time.
The director also described the scarecrows in this movie as predators in their natural environment. Okay, but we spend more time in the farmhouse than we spend in the cornfield, so how are they predators in their natural habitat when we're not spending the time in their habitat? Street Trash from 1987 is a black comedy body horror. When a liquor store owner finds a case of Viper in his cellar, he decides to sell it to the local hobos at $1 a bottle, unaware its true properties will cause the consumers to melt. 2 homeless men find themselves up against the effects of the toxic brew, as well as going head-to-head with Bronson, a Vietnam vet with sociopathic tendencies and the owner of the junkyard that they live in. Ooh, I can hear some of you saying cancel me for this one, because I know that those that love Street Trash, and it is considered a cult classic from the 80s, and I will be the first to say I wanted to like this movie going into it. I was sold on the fact that this is a body horror. Massive fan of body horror. Love the sticky, ooey, neon goodness in this movie. Like the first 10 minutes when the guy sort of dissolves into a toilet. Love that. Love the end sequence. But what I didn't know going into Street Trash is that this is also an exploitation movie, which is possibly my biggest ick when it comes to horror movies, because I'm not a fan of exploitation movies, and this movie happens to contain a gang SA scene and a scene with a dead woman. And I was not expecting that, and it has really put me off rewatching this one ever again, despite liking the sticky, ooey, neon goodness.
You got slime!
Considering that this was sold to me as a body melt movie, the middle section is anything and everything but a body melt movie, and it's more like a drama movie about homeless people that live in a junkyard doing progressively more questionable things, including playing American football, and I have to put this in YouTube friendly terms, with a man's severed human eggplant, and everybody is just completely normal about this. Like, I wouldn't willingly sit down and watch an exploitation movie. That's just my personal thing. But I do know that they are remaking Street Trash, and it has a rumoured 2025 release date. Now, I would possibly be interested in watching the remake if it is going down more of the, like, body melt kind of stuff, because if you've seen Street Trash, you know that there are certain things in that movie that would not fly now. So I'd be interested to see what they would do to replace those scenes that would not get through, like, the certification board now. The Nutcracker Massacre from 2022 is a Christmas slasher horror. Clara, a struggling romance novelist, receives an invitation from her beloved aunt to spend the Christmas holidays with her. When she arrives at the secluded countryside cottage, she sees that her aunt has a life-size Nutcracker doll by the Christmas tree, which soon becomes possessed and starts to wreak havoc. Blood and Honey has a lot to answer for, because in the past couple of years, we have had an influx of trash horror movies that rely on childhood nostalgia or childhood stories to sell them, done on a budget of peanuts. And I bring this up because this movie, even though it came out before Blood and Honey, has the exact same producer. And when I tell you that this person has been cranking these movies out for fun, I would not be exaggerating. I will pop some of them up around the screen as I speak, because at the moment they have done 117 of these movies in the past few years, and I am not kidding. Who asked for all of these?
Stu, put down your hand.
This one, though, is laughably bad if you live in the UK. Now, if you have seen this movie, you may look at some of the props in this and think that they look familiar. And that is because this entire movie has been decorated using the Home Bargains Christmas section. And the antique nutcrackers in this cost £10 in Home Bargains, because I guarantee at this point, one in every 2 houses in the UK has one of these damn nutcrackers. For my Americans out there, it would be like shopping at Walmart and trying to claim that it's vintage. I'm not saying that you can't do a movie on a low budget. I'm just saying maybe don't make the focus of your movie something that every damn person in the UK has seen and knows it only costs 10 quid. If you are looking for a Christmas slasher movie, this one is not it, because that 6-foot nutcracker is the most unmenacing thing that you will ever see in his paper mache head, and the fact that they gave him jewellery pliers as a weapon, like, they didn't even give him a nutcracker, and they make a literal nutcracker joke in this when a guy gets his human plums cut off. I'm trying to keep this YouTube friendly. The plot in this is about as clear as the fog in Silent Hill, and the most hilarious thing is it's not even a horror comedy. It's a horror thriller. I was expecting, like, low budget awful, but this makes the movie The Mean One, you know, the Grinch horror movie, look like James Cameron's Avatar. Child's Play from 2019 is a sci-fi slasher. After moving to a new city, 13-year-old Andy Barclay receives a special present from his mum on his birthday, a seemingly innocent buddy doll that becomes his new best friend. When the doll suddenly takes on a life of its own, Andy unites with the other neighbourhood children to stop the sinister toy from wreaking bloody havoc. If you are familiar with my channel, you will know that I am a massive fan of the red-headed, blue-eyed doll that is Chucky, and I hate this remake slash reboot slash whatever the hell this is with every fibre of my being. The fact that Don Mancini, Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly wanted nothing to do with this movie should tell you absolutely anything. The man that created Chucky said, no thank you, absolutely not.
Are you serious?
And this version of Chucky just looks horrible. He looks like Ryan Gosling as Ken cosplaying as Sharon Osbourne. Like, Once you see it, you can't unsee it. By making Chucky an AI, you've removed any kind of personality that Chucky has. Like, when he's possessed by the spirit of Charles Lee Ray, you know that there's an actual little serial killer in this. Little AI doll, he's just Megan without the dancing. Like, do I expect him to start dancing at some point? Possibly. He's a Furby. He's a Furby with an Alexa. If you take away the Child's Play name, which is the thing that sold people on watching this movie to begin with, without it, it is just another generic slasher movie about a rogue AI that I have no interest whatsoever in watching. Like, this is like Megan meets Saw 7, and nobody's favourite movie is Saw 7 with its bright pink blood. So there you have it, 8 more horror movies that I am just never going to rewatch, and if you have opinions on any of these, please feel free to drop them down in the comment section down below, or you could also tell me what movies that you are never going to rewatch, because then maybe we can start a list of movies that we can all avoid going forward in the future. If you would like to know where else you can find me though, I am also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, where I have already watched 150 horror movies so far this year, so who knows what number I am going to be on by the end of the year. But here on YouTube, I will be back on Monday. And every time somebody has left me a recommendation here on YouTube, I have compiled them all together in a list. So coming up on Monday, I am finally revealing what my plans are for October when I tell you all about my 21 in 31 challenge, featuring all of your recommendations. So until next time, bye.